It's a brand new day. Behold, I make all things new. That's your theme this month, and I just love it because there's such promise in that. It's such a wonderful thing. You know, no matter how dark the night has been, no matter how great a struggle you've gone through, the dawn comes up the next morning. We saw a beautiful dawn this morning at Brad and Barbie's house. And you can't help but when you see a dawn to have that stirring within you, that it's an opportunity to begin anew. Every minute we have that opportunity to begin anew. What a wonderful thing. What a wonderful thing to remember when you feel like you're on a path that has no opening, to know that, behold, I make all things new. And a new design for living is the topic for today, and it's wonderful. And I decided to approach it by saying, if I'm going to design my life, what aspects am I going to have in it? How is it going to look? Because we do design our lives all the time, but if I'm going to make a conscious decision to design my life, what am I going to do? Well, actually, Reverend Andy and Dave just kind of did the whole thing in their song. I don't even need to say anything, really. But the first thing is to remember who I am. To remember who you are. Like the first two steps in spiritual mind treatment, like Andy said, align yourself with spirit. To remember that there is only one power in the universe, and it's a power for good. And it's inexhaustible. It's infinite. It's the allness of love and peace and joy. And it created all of us out of itself. For what else did it have to create us with? And therefore, how could we not be enough? How could we lack anything if we are created from the infinite perfection of the universe? So in my new design, every day, I want to remember who I am. I want to remember that to go for it, to live all out. I was in Reverend David's office just now, looking, being quiet and looking over my notes, and he has a wonderful card there that says, I came to live out loud. I love that. I came to live out loud. I didn't come to hide, to worry, to suffer. I came to live out loud. Doesn't mean we're not going to have some bumps in the road, but every day is a new beginning. Rumi said, stop acting so small. You are the universe in ecstatic motion. You, all of us, we're the universe in ecstatic motion. We have the power of the all within us. There's nothing that we cannot do. So, the next thing I'm going to do is since I know who I am, I'm going to make bolder choices. Yeah. Make bolder choices in my life. Step out and do the things I only thought I couldn't dare do. I'm going to, I read a quote somewhere, I don't remember who it's by, but they said, the hardest thing for me was to follow the advice that came when I prayed for an answer. Because Spirit will give you something big to do. Spirit doesn't play small. If you ask to be used by Spirit, use me. It's one of the most powerful prayers because watch out, Spirit doesn't play small. And therefore, we need to make bold choices in our lives. Without fear, without worry, with that little thought that said, do I dare? And one of the things we're going to do in our workshop today that's so wonderful is talk about that passion that we all have and reignite that and remember that that's God's message to us saying yes. And have you ever gotten all inspired by something and then you go home and you kind of do the same thing you've always done? So we're going to talk about how to take that inspiration and those intentions you've been setting and spark them into action, light them on fire. And the wonderful thing is I'm so fortunate to have Reverend Andy as my husband because he plays music to embody. You know, when you have an idea and then you have a song, it just embodies it. So it takes it to a whole new level. I invite you to come and invite your friends. So another thing that I would do if I was consciously designing my life is remember every day how powerful my words, my thoughts, and my intentions really are. Now, you all know this if you've been in this teaching at all. Ernest Holmes says, change your thoughts, change your life. We all know how powerful they are, but I want to remember every day because sometimes we forget. I want to challenge you to not say anything you don't want to happen. Don't talk about those things that you don't want to happen. Don't say I am and put anything negative after it. I am is a powerful statement. And when you say, I am sick, I am tired, I am weak, I am struggling, that's a powerful message to the universe. Because you know, the universe always says yes. It always says yes. So if I say to the universe, I think I want to do something that I love and make a living from it. And the universe says, yes, Bonnie, you can do something you love and make a living from it. And then I say, but everybody knows you can't make a living doing what you love, not in this world. And what does Spirit say? Yes, Bonnie, you can't make a living doing what you love. Everyone knows that. So our words have such power. And sometimes we love to tell our stories, don't we? Oh, we love to tell our tales of woe, how we've struggled. And I say again, watch your words, observe what you're saying, and think about, is that what you want to come into manifestation? And worry is just praying for what you don't want, isn't it? So I'm going to tell you a story of how something that just happened to Andy and I. We were in Salem. We were doing the service in Salem last weekend before Martin Luther King's birthday, and I saw online that there was a wonderful presentation at one of the Portland churches in Lake Oswego on Martin and music, about Martin Luther King and the music. It was a two-man show, and I hadn't been to a Martin Luther King event in quite some time, and I thought, oh, I want to go to that, and we're going to be in Salem, so let's make it happen. So we figured out, and we took our travel trailer and went to Silver Falls Campground, which is beautiful, and drove, and so we're driving up, and we were late, so we're kind of rushing a little, and we had to go set up the trailer and then drive to Lake Oswego, and I said, oh, this is crazy. Why are we doing this? This is too much driving. It's going to take us 3 hours back and forth to Lake Oswego from the campground, and we're late. There's no more tickets for sale. It's almost sold out. We're going to sit in the back row, and we're not going to see a thing. And then I listened to myself, and I went, oh, what am I creating, Bonnie? What's going to show up if this is what I'm saying? And Andy's heard this line many times before. He just kind of drives and listens. So I said, oh, I heard myself. And I said, oh, this isn't what I want to happen. I said, let's do a treatment. So we did a spiritual mind treatment in the car on the way there, that we would get there early, that the event would be incredible and life-changing, and that we would have perfect seats and be able to see and hear easily. And Andy added to the treatment, and we'll be sitting in the front row. And I almost went, are you crazy? The front row? We're getting that, So I stopped again and just shut my mouth, and I knew that he believed, even though I couldn't really believe that we were going to be in the front row. He did. He did at that moment. And in the meantime, I had emailed David, Reverend David Alexander, and asked him to save a couple tickets for us, and he said he would. So we get there, and we're early, and we go in, and someone I'd never met before goes, oh, you're Reverend Bonnie and Reverend Andy. We're so honored to have you here. Well, that was nice. And then we said, well, they're holding tickets for us. And they said, yes. Oh, here's your ticket. And they gave us the ticket. And Andy took out his credit card and said, how much do I owe you? And they said, oh, there's no charge. This is nice. And so I looked at the ticket, and it said, Section A, Row A. That doesn't sound like the back row to me. So we went in and sat in the front row. And what had happened is the mayor was supporting this event, and he and his wife were supposed to attend, but at the last minute, they had to cancel. And so they said, well, let's give those tickets to Bonnie and Andy. That's probably when we were doing the treatment. But if I had continued my song of woe, that would never have happened. And it was a kind of a twist. It was kind of a personal message to us from Spirit. I went, okay, Bonnie, yeah, front row. Okay, remember. So remember how powerful your words and thoughts and visions are. It's so important to realize the power of that, because we give our tale of woe and we say, this is, I never get ahead. And then you don't, and you say, see, I told you. I can never get ahead. We create, so why not open up the doors? When Andy and I moved from Fremont, California to Roseburg, we sat down and wrote a list of everything we wanted in our new home. And we wanted it open. We wanted it on the water so Andy could go out and fish. We wanted it to be our peaceful sanctuary. And we let it go. We didn't write down a list of what we thought we could afford. That would have been a different list. We didn't write down a list of what we thought we deserved. We wrote down a list of, if we could have anything, what would we have? So take the limits off. We have our beautiful sanctuary. We're actually beginning to offer it to people to use when we're traveling, because we're out traveling now, and we're offering people to come there and rent it and experience, because everyone who comes feels the great peace, just like the peace I feel at Barbie and Brad's. So sometimes we have to give God something to do, a direction. It's like Ernest Holmes in the textbook talks about it being like an iron foundry, where you melt the iron and it becomes liquid. And then you pour the liquid into molds, and the molds become things. Just like we pour our thought into the unformed substance. And the unformed substance, or the molten metal, doesn't care what mold you put it in. It can be a mold for joy, or a mold for sorrow. It can be a mold for success, or a mold for pain and suffering. But we make the mold. We don't do that. We don't handle the how it happens, how it comes into being. We just decide what it is that we want. We give God something to do with this unformed substance, the creative principle. And another thing that I would add to this grand design for living is to have a little fun. lot of fun. I can sometimes get too serious with, reading the books and studying and doing treatment, but life is about joy and fun. We need to have some fun. We need to open up and have belly laughs and enjoy this journey that we're on and not take it so seriously. Rumi said, when you do things from your soul, you feel a river moving in you, a joy. When you feel things from your soul, you feel a river moving in you, a joy. So let's connect with that river of joy. And many times that's just being awake, isn't it? Being awake and not unconscious. This morning when I looked outside, just when the sun was coming up, the trees were so still. There wasn't a breath of wind. And and the trees and the branches just had this energy of incredible power and stillness. And I was awake enough to notice it. Rather than being worried about my talk or this or that, I took some time and just remembered to open to what's around us. All you have to do is look in the face of a baby and you see joy, don't you? Or a child. My grandson the other day looked at me. He lives in California, so I don't get to see him as much as I would like. He's 5. But he was sitting kind of close to me, and he looked at me and he said, "Grandma, are you vintage?" I said, "Well, maybe, I guess I am." And our son Ben said, "Well, he was asking me what vintage meant." And so I explained very patiently. He's just a great dad. He explains all the, this is what made you old and all this, And I said, "Why, were you looking at my wrinkles and thinking about how old I am?" And he went, "Yeah." So lighten up and experience the joy, the laughter, the lightness of being. Excuse me.
Don't we have beautiful cups?
So the last thing that I want to mention about this grand design is to ask for help when you need it. Sometimes we're hesitant to ask for help. We think we need to do it all ourselves, or we should know the answer. We think we're alone. Sometimes when we're struggling, we feel very alone. But everybody needs to ask for help sometimes. I have a practitioner, I have a mentor that I call on when I'm facing a crisis or when I forget the truth. And you're so fortunate here because you have so many wonderful ministers and practitioners, and Reverend David, Reverend Sue, Reverend Mary, and all the other ministers and practitioners who you can go to and you tell them your tale of woe and they'll smile and they won't believe you. Because they'll see the truth behind the illusion. They'll see the truth of you and they'll remind you of that. When I first started going to, my mentor is Reverend Dr. Sue Rubin in Southern California, retired. She's in her 80s, a wonderful retired minister who's so rooted in principle. And I was a new minister at the Roseburg Church, and I was a mess. And I called her. I said, I need to talk. So we talked the first time, and I said, "I don't know how to do this. This is overwhelming and all this." And she said, "Bonnie, are you doing your daily work? Are you meditating every day?" And I said, "No. I'm a minister, but I'm not doing that." So here was an answer that I asked for help, and she gave me the key to everything. She said, "Before you do anything in the morning, meditate for at least 5 minutes. And it'll feel good, and you want to do more, and you want to do more. And now that's part of our practice, Reverend Andy and I, and we don't forget, because when we do, things start to fall apart. So we all need help sometimes. Don't be afraid to reach out. There are people who would love to help you. Instead of calling that friend who will agree with all of your grievances, your resentments. Can you believe what he did? And they'll say, oh, that's terrible. We all have friends like that. I do too. But reach out for a like-minded person that will see the truth of you. I'd like to read a quote from Dr. Ernest Holmes that I really like. The spirit is neither sad nor depressed. If you would catch the vision of the joy which should be yours, you must dry your tears. You must lay aside your fears. You must think from the inspirational center within you, which is nothing less than the divine in you, singing its song of life. Spirit is expressing through us. That is what it does. The divine in you is singing its song of life. Let it sing sweetly through you. Let it sing a life that you design of joy and peace and love and laughter beyond your wildest dreams. For that is what it does, singing its song of life. Thank you for inviting me to speak this morning.
Serve